Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Power of LoRaWAN, and put on by the LoRa Alliance. And the title of today's show is LoRa Alliance, LoRaWAN, and the Chinese Market. Now, we have a really good agenda for today's session. It is in go ahead and go to the next slide, Sky. Our agenda for our jam-packed show today is in two sessions. So here is session one for you all today. This will be speakers from the LoRa Alliance, starting off with Donna Moore, our CEO and chairwoman, and then several of us who are involved with the LoRa Alliance, our chairs from our technical security and certification groups will be speaking with you as well. And then at the end of session one, we will have a Q&A, and we'll go ahead and answer the questions that you submit. And then after that, we will go straight into session two, so we're not going to have a pause. Now, session two features two of our LoRa Alliance member companies, as you see here, Lierda and REC Wireless. They have two very good presentations about LoRaWAN solutions in China. And then we have Xiaobo Yu, our Asia Pacific Regional Vice Chair, who will talk about LoRaWAN in the Chinese market and improving LoRaWAN in China in terms of growing its awareness and adoption. And then at the end of session two, we will have another question and answer session for all of you. Now, if you would like to submit a question, you can do so by using the Q&A button on your Zoom panel. Also, you can submit your questions in Chinese. Xiaobo on our team here will go ahead and do any translations that's necessary for our all of us English speakers for today. So with that, again, I welcome you all very, very much, and I would like to go ahead and introduce you all to our very first speaker, Donna Moore, who is the chairwoman and CEO of the LoRa Alliance, and she will talk to you all today about LoRaWAN 2021, the year of scale. Donna,
Great.
Over to you.
Thanks, Derek. Well, I am thrilled to be here, and I'm very excited to talk about LoRaWAN. You know, 2020 was our 5-year anniversary, and we've achieved so much. And why we achieved so much was due to our large, supportive IoT LoRaWAN ecosystem. And in fact, in the last 12 months, LoRaWAN is the only LPWAN that has really, really moved the needle globally in terms of helping and supporting people all around the world with safety and health and wellness, as well as supporting environmental sustainability. And that's where we came up with the saying, the power of LoRaWAN, because the last 12 months really showed the power of our global, gigantic LoRaWAN ecosystem and how it contributed to the world. And that's why I'm really excited about China. And again, I'm thrilled to be here. China is very important to LoRaWAN, and I hope that LoRaWAN is very important to China. You know, since China is the second largest economic market, and we also know that China really leads the way for Asia in terms of technology and innovation. And so we really want to partner with China to help China solve its region's safety and health and wellness, as well as environmental, as well as businesses and moving them forward. So together, I'm hoping that the power of LoRaWAN and the power of China, we can produce amazing results over the next few years. Let's go ahead and move forward. So as we enter 2021, it's all about scale. And when I say scale, I mean vertical scale. You know, historically, LoRaWAN has done an incredible job in driving new verticals and new markets, new use cases, and that's great. And that's what laid the framework for us to scale today. But starting in 2021, I know that LoRaWAN is the only LPWAN that has the ability to scale and scale in a massive way. And this presentation is going to really outline why LoRaWAN is what you should be building for your IoT needs, why you can make a difference with LoRaWAN, and why LoRaWAN is uniquely positioned to scale over the next year and going forward. You know, and I want to say one thing as I kick off the slides to demonstrate why. There's also hyperscaler companies that when they get involved with standards organizations or alliance, they really hyperscale and they drive it forward. And I'm sure you're probably aware that at the end of 2020, AWS, Amazon's AWS, announced the AWS IoT Core for LoRaWAN. And that is a hyperscaler with AWS putting, doubling down and putting money on the infrastructure and building out for LoRaWAN. It is driving the market forward. And that is just the tipping scale for scaling. And it also gives the market confidence that LoRaWAN is the LPWAN for IoT, because you don't have big scalers putting their money behind standards that aren't going to scale and grow forward in massive volumes. So let's look at the reasons why LoRaWAN. Next slide. So what we know in particular over the last year is that it is a critical for standards. If you want massive scalings, it needs to be a standard. It can't be a proprietary solution or a single connectivity solution. It just won't scale. Those are isolated niche types of markets. And what we know is LoRaWAN is an open global alliance that is a standard. And the open part is critical for innovation. And the standard part is critical for interoperability, because the number of devices that are going to be connected and moving forward, you must have a standardization to move that forward in a really big way. So I'm really proud that LoRaWAN standard has become the de facto standard based on those criteria. So let's move forward. So, specific specifications are key to scale. And I'm so proud of Alper and our technical team and our alliance members that spend time in the technical committee, because they've produced 3 incredible guidelines that are really supporting scale. And Alper will be going over that later in this webinar, but briefly to talk about the release of 1.0.4, and that really helps the deployment, the development, and the certification of LoRaWAN. It makes it easy, because if you're going to scale, it can't be complicated. And the next thing we're going to talk about is our regional parameters. And we just launched a new regional parameter for the globe. And they'll talk about that in the technical part, as well as device QR codes. And why is that important? Because it needs to be easy to get the devices up and running. So again, Alper will cover that, but those are 3 key standards and specifications that the LoRaWAN released in 2020 to drive scale. All right, next one. So the other thing that we're seeing is end-to-end solutions, which are going to accelerate scale. And what we're seeing, particularly over the last 12 months, is very large companies dropping into the IoT market and offering end-to-end solutions. They're also partnering with many of our alliance members. That's key for membership, because not every company does every piece of the value chain, but it is important to the end user to provide end-to-end solutions, so it's just a breeze. And with these large companies entering the market, we are going to see scale. Next. So this is really important as well. Multi-RAN strategies that are needed to support scale. What we know is the IoT market is endless, and there are so many use cases and so many different types of use cases. Do you need big data or small data? Do you need low latency, or that's not important? Is battery life versus distance? There's all those factors, and there's endless possibilities with IoT improving our world. So LoRaWAN is probably the best position in that we have already partnered with and have done use cases and deployments with Wi-Fi, with Bluetooth, with LTE, 5G. Many of our members deploy this multi-RAN strategy as well. And this is key to scale, because if you're going to have millions and billions of devices in the market, it is critical that you can capture all the various needs. And not one type of communication technology can capture all the needs. So LoRaWAN has a great track record, particularly if you would like to read some of the white papers with Wi-Fi. So we're excited about working with all the other technologies so we can capture all the use cases in the market. Next. So security is absolutely required for scaling. The great thing about LoRaWAN is that it was built with security in mind from the very beginning. And later, Johan will be speaking about security in this webinar. And I can tell you, we continually evolve to keep up with any changing security needs in the market. And again, that's great with standards because it is a standard and we know it's robust and that it works. Next. There you go. All right, certification. This is a hot button of mine because if you're going to have millions and billions of devices in the market, and they're supposed to last for 10 years plus, and they're in hard to reach places, buried underground, overseas, on bridges, you must know that they are going to work and that they were built as intended with security and conformance tested. So Derek Hunt will speak later about certification, but it is critical for certification. I don't know of any standards that are really out there in the billions that have scaled that don't have a strong certification program attached. End users need to know that they're banking on the right technology, and LoRaWAN has an incredible certification program. Next. So as I leave this here, I want to say this. This was supposed to be a moving slide, but that's okay. 2021 for LoRaWAN is absolutely the year of scale. And for all those reasons I discussed, that is why LoRaWAN is the only LPWAN beautifully and completely and solidly positioned to scale in 2021. So let me just read this really quick, make sure I get all this. So LoRaWAN has the largest ecosystem. LoRaWAN has the most deployments in 2020. LoRaWAN is an open standard. LoRaWAN is flexible, both in terms of CapEx and OpEx. LoRaWAN is secure. LoRaWAN specifications make it easy to develop, deploy, and certify. LoRaWAN is proven with a multi-RAN strategy. LoRaWAN offers the most certified devices and devices in general on the market. And LoRaWAN has hyperscalers like AWS supporting both financially and in the market communication, LoRaWAN. So with all of this, I'm telling you, you really need to jump on the LoRaWAN bandwagon and move it forward because it will support China. It will help drive and make your world so much better on so many levels. So with that, next slide. There we go. I just want to say thank you for being here today. It's really important that in the rest of this webinar, we will be talking about marketing and technical background and specifications and certification. Very important. And if you need to learn more, you can reach out to everybody on this webinar. So next, I've got Derek Wallace. Derek is the Vice President of Marketing at LoRa Alliance. Here you go, Derek.
Thank you, Donna, and hello again, everybody. It is my pleasure to join you today. And what I'm going to do in this, my presentation, is talk to you a little bit about some of the marketing highlights from 2020. Go ahead, Sky. And then also kind of tell you what we have in store for 2021 and the plans that the LoRa Alliance has to be much more active in the Chinese market this year in partnership with the China Task Force that is part of the LoRa Alliance as well. So as you all know, 2020 was a difficult year for everyone around the world. And for the LoRa Alliance, the developments really led us to take an earlier shift of our marketing. Now, previously, the LoRa Alliance spent a lot of time, a lot of money going to different in-person or face-to-face events throughout the world. And we'll keep doing that again as the world opens up again. However, we knew that we really needed to have a much more continuous market presence and contact with the market. And we started that shift in 2020. And that's really leading into this transition of where we're going in 2021 and how that's going to impact the Chinese market. So here's just some of the highlights that you see on this slide. We did 17 webinars in 2020. Already in January, we have 3 that we are doing. And in fact, when I talk about Destination LoRaWAN later, that webcast series, and that's just one series of ours, we're planning 30 webinars just for that webcast series alone. We produced 130 use cases and published them throughout the world. Now, these are use cases that promote our members and their LoRaWAN solutions throughout the world that are enabling IoT use cases. And in 2021, we will be working very closely with the China Task Force and the Chinese members of our alliance to really make sure we get their information and promote their LoRaWAN solutions, because they're doing some excellent work. And in fact, Shavo and Terry and Jose will talk about some LoRaWAN solutions that are right now being active in the Chinese market. We did 7 white papers in 2020. We're already publishing 3 this month. We'll be producing so many more white papers and use cases and other collateral throughout 2021 throughout the world. And in fact, we'll be doing translations and opening it to much more than just English, which is going to be a first for the Alliance. Here you see 2 images on the right of this slide, and that's LoRaWAN for Good and then a call for COVID-19 use cases. These were 2 campaigns that we ran this year, and our members participated strongly in them. So LoRaWAN for Good is a campaign that we ran last year, which is in partnership or really in support of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we put this campaign together so we could highlight and showcase our members' solutions around the world that actually answer one of those 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And in fact, during the kickoff for the Destination LoRaWAN webinar last December, actually December 16th, so about a month ago, I recognized 4 of our members for their contributions to the LoRaWAN for Good campaign. And one of those members was a Chinese company called MileSite. And they're doing really, really great work. And we had them on the webcast to really promote and show their solution. So we'll be doing more campaigns this year. And as I mentioned, Destination LoRaWAN will be a fantastic campaign, a year-long webcast series, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a couple of slides. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Scott. So as I mentioned, 2020 is really leading into this transformation of marketing within the LoRa Alliance so that we really freshen up and transform our content and our messaging and then have a continuous touch with the market throughout the world. What you're seeing here in this slide is the vertical market section of our website. This was completely transformed by Anne Van Gemert on my team. She put up so much great interactive and new, fresh content of our member solution. So there's use cases, there's webinars, there's white papers, there's testimonials, there's success stories, and we'll be doing so much more of this in 2021. This is just a taste of the promotion and marketing of LoRaWAN and the impact it's having around the world, solving different use cases in different vertical markets. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Sky. Now, what I've just talked about really is it's just a highlight of some of the marketing activities in 2020. Now, what I'm really very happy to introduce to you all and let you see here is our 2020 end of year report, which we have just released. Now, this report really showcases our 2021 theme, which is Power of LoRaWAN. That's that image on the left. And then it's a recap of what happened in 2020 on these different topics of technical, certification, regulatory. We have 2 great new videos that we've released that are in the report as well. In fact, the Smart Businesses Use LoRaWAN video is the first time we've released that to the market. Now, we will be sending out today's webinar for all of you and within a couple of days, and you'll be able to download this report and see all the different activities that the LoRa Alliance did in 2020. And of course, you can learn much more about the LoRa Alliance by visiting our website. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Sky. So I talked about this before. Destination LoRaWAN is our year-long webcast series where we are circling the globe. We're stopping in individual companies around the world, and we are having a webcast focused on LoRaWAN in that specific country. And in fact, our very first webcast series, our episode will be in 2 days, and that will be focused on Italy. And that will be in Italian, but it will also be released with subtitles in several languages, including Chinese. And later on, you'll find out about the China stop on our destination LoRaWAN, which we will be partnering with our China task force to deliver a really good show with great content. And that webcast will be in Chinese in April. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Sky. So it's great that we're doing a lot of activities with the LoRa Alliance and LoRaWAN all around the world. But what's really been clear to us is we need to focus more on China. We need to partner with our China task force members, with members who are based in China, with members who do business in China. And therefore, we really decided that let's kick off 2021 with this first kind of reintroduction of the LoRa Alliance and to the Chinese market, really start promoting and showing that the LoRa Alliance is here and all the great, fantastic activities that LoRaWAN is doing in China and around the world. And this will just be the first of a series of webinars dedicated to the Chinese market. This is completely different from the Destination LoRaWAN webcast series that I was talking about. So throughout the year, we will produce more webinars with different themes for the Chinese market. The theme could be vertical markets, it could be specific use cases, it could be about sustainability. We'll be partnering with our members, which would be, it's a great time to join the LoRa Alliance, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. I mentioned before, Destination LoRaWAN. Our stop for China will be in April. So we'll start putting the content together for that webinar soon. We're going to have a great show. It will be in Chinese. It will be in April. But then, just like the other webcasts in different countries, we will also have subtitles to share that webcast with the rest of the world as well. So it will be subtitled in English, Italian, Spanish, and French. And then this next thing is a really big deal as well. So we have 3 committee meetings or our member meetings each year, only 3 of them. And we travel the world to do that. We had planned to have our June member meeting in Shanghai this year. Now, unfortunately, we have had to reschedule that. We will most likely be rescheduling that to Q2 of 2022, but we're still absolutely doing that. But what we'll use for 2021 is definitely the activities that I'm talking about on this slide, which will really be building up momentum, sharing information, getting new members, bringing them into the LoRa Alliance, and really helping them be successful with their LoRaWAN business in China or wherever they do business in the world. So there's a lot that's going to be going on in the Chinese market. Now, I mentioned the China task force, and this is really important within the LoRa Alliance. This is a task force made up of member companies who are based in China or who do business in China. And they come together and they really help influence the marketing activities for China and the APAC region. We talk about the LoRaWAN specification and requirements that are needed to help support China better. Really the specific use cases in the Chinese market. So we are encouraging more and more companies to join the Alliance and to join the China Task Force in particular. We're translating materials, I mentioned this earlier, into Chinese and other languages. It's the first time we've really ever done this in the Alliance, and we'll be doing that quite a lot this year. And we have much more that's coming up in 2021. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited to get to know you better and to continue the partnership with our China Task Force. And of course, if you have questions, you can reach me. In fact, let's go ahead and go to the next slide because talk about membership. And this is one of the ways you can reach me as well. So the LoRa Alliance is really simply the best ecosystem of LoRaWAN companies and LPWAN companies in the globe. It is absolutely one of the very best ways to grow your LoRaWAN business. If you really want to turbocharge your marketing, reduce your go-to-market costs, reduce your time to market, really find the right ecosystem partners or partners to do business with within China or globally, join the LoRa Alliance is absolutely the best way to do that for you. It's also a great way to be able to influence the direction of the LoRaWAN specification. So there are different features, there's regional parameters for China specifically, but also the Asia Pacific region that you may want to join to help influence the direction of that. And there are other areas where members can impact the LoRaWAN specification. There's a lot to the Alliance, a lot of great companies, a lot of great people. I encourage you to join. If you have questions about the Alliance and the benefits of membership, you can go and visit this link here at the bottom about membership benefits. This image on the right of the slide is really a snapshot of the membership benefits and the different tiers of membership in the Alliance and what you get as a member. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Sky. So if you are interested in becoming a member, if you have any questions at all, you can, as I said before, go to the website go to our website and look at membership benefits. And I'm speaking a bit fast, had a little bit too much coffee. You can always contact me directly. I'm happy to take your questions and talk to you about the benefits of the LoRa Alliance and how it can help your LoRaWAN business. And with that, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Yep. So thank you all very much. It is now my pleasure to introduce Alper, who is the Technical Committee Chair for the LoRa Alliance, and he's going to talk to you about LoRaWAN technical development. Go ahead, Alper.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about what we do in the LoRa Alliance Technical Committee. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll be briefly covering what we do, what the scope of our work is, and I will get into a little bit of more details on our recent publications that our chairwoman Donna has touched upon. And finally, I'll talk about what's on our plate moving forward. So this activity had started more than 5 years ago by simply standardizing an interface between the end device and the network, the so-called LoRaWAN link layer. And over time, we have expanded the scope of our work by in several dimensions. One dimension, we started adding multiple regions, including China, obviously, starting all the way from Europe in the past, and increasing our footprint in the regions. And in another direction, we have moved into the transport layers, such as providing multicast support and fragmentation, and even moving into the application stack adaptation. And on the backend side, the single network is now decomposed into network server, joint server, and application server. And in all of this movement, the idea has been, in order to achieve the largest ecosystem, we need to provide interoperable interfaces so that vendors all around the world can build their products and can plug them into any network anywhere in the world. And with that marching order, let me tell you what we have published in the past 3 to 4 months. Let's go to the next slide, please. The cornerstone of our architecture, the protocol specification suite, is the link layer specification. And we have reached the version 1.0.4, which is the most mature version of our specification. Now, that came with a number of improvements, most notably on Class B. Now we can support indoor gateways that are outside the coverage of GPS satellites. And also we have further security hardening. On top of all these improvements, we have also decided moving forward to package the link layer specification together with the end device reference implementation, LoRaWAN certification test tool, and the certification program, such that we would publish all of these products all at once, so that the moment the device makers have the link layer specification, they also have all the rest of the tools they need to build their platforms. And we believe that would be accelerating, or that would be shortening the productization time scale, and that'll bring even more devices to our ecosystem. Let's go to the next slide, please. At the same time, on the backend interfaces side, over the past 2 to 3 years, the industry has not only implemented the backend spec for roaming and activation, but also started accelerating the adoption and the deployment of roaming. And as such, we started getting feedback from the field. So what we do in general in the technical committee is we react to the market in terms of addressing their issues, reducing barriers, and removing friction points. And we also take preemptive actions, anticipating where the market is moving, and laying the bricks for them to move forward without any hindrance. So on the backend side, with the increased footprint of roaming, we identified the additional needs, such as providing geolocation feature for roaming devices and enabling advanced usage data record determination by counting not only frames but also the devices, and allowing roaming even in the absence of roaming in the absence of a net ID, things like that. So with that, again, we are seeing that the roaming is accelerating further. And obviously, we are anticipating more feedback from the market to continue this evolution. Next slide, please. Did we skip a slide? No. Okay. Well, yeah, this one. Yes, this one. Okay. And on the region parameter spec on this site, we have published 2 specifications. And in the latest specification, now we support the so-called long-range frequency hopping spread spectrum, which comes with a very low data rate. And that opens the door for mounting LoRaWAN gateways on the LEO satellites. These are the low Earth orbiting satellites that, that fly 500 to 600 kilometers above the ground. And through that, now operators will be able to provide coverage in the remotest places on Earth. And also with the same extension, now we provide enhanced network capacity, especially for deep indoor coverage. Now we're able to pack even more devices in the hardest RF conditions, and those are typically the meters that are deep indoor. And we've been following the regulatory changes in China very closely and reacting to it step by step. And by now we are in sync with the Chinese regulations in our CN 470 510 region, and added a number of countries to the regional parameters. Next slide, please. And as you know, we're in the business of building a massive IoT or unlocking massive IoT. And one of the important challenges in that is zero-touch device provisioning. So up until now, people had to enter the device credentials and identifiers by hand, or push them through emails and copy paste out of Excel, which has been error prone and also cumbersome and created such an overhead. And a number of our members have already adopted using QR codes for that. And what we have done is we have defined a standard format for the QR codes so that any device manufacturer that follows our specification would be able to print the device credentials on a QR code and stick it on the device. And then any network or any network management system would be able to read that QR code using a mobile app or a dedicated QR reader and provision the device in the network. And through that, now we are opening the door to being able to provision thousands and millions of devices using a very easy procedure. So let's go to the next slide, please. So having talked about what we have recently published, obviously we're still very, very busy. In terms of what we do nowadays, we are evolving the current specifications, be it the link layer or the backend interface or the firmware update over the air. And we're also working on standardizing additional backend interfaces to unlock other parts of the ecosystem. And we're constantly adding support for new countries to increase our footprint. And we're also working on adapting popular application stacks like DLMS, wireless MBUS, in order to simplify the integration of LoRaWAN into existing legacy systems, metering systems, smart city systems. And while we're developing specifications, we're also making sure that we build technical recommendations. These are guidance documents provided to various parts of our ecosystem, such as device makers, solution providers, and network operators, and closing the gap between their current ability and just simply reading our standard specs. We need to provide a little bit more hand-holding, and that's coming in the form of technical recommendations. And just like we do in every year, we have new projects coming in. We have this roadmap working group process that we process new project proposals to add on our plate, and that's an ongoing activity. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. Any questions you might have, please do join the Q&A at the end. If not, please feel free to reach out to me. And now I would like to introduce the next speaker, Johan Stocking. Johan is the Security Working Group Chair, and he is the co-founder of the Things Network and the CTO of the Things Industries. So the floor is yours, Johan.
Thank you, Alper. Hello, everyone. My name is Johan, as Alper said, and I'm going to talk about security in LoRaWAN. And next slide, please. And what's important here is that LoRaWAN is secure by design, and it's really built into the protocol. So it's not just a feature that is on top of LoRaWAN, but it's integrated. And I'm not going to go into all the details. We have published as a LoRa Alliance recently some really good contents on this, but I'm going to give you the overview that is important at this stage. Next slide, please. Thanks. So LoRa and LoRaWAN have these 9 features that really make it unique, and you won't see this combination of features in any other low power wide area networking technologies today. And so many of these features are also available when you're using the physical layer directly, but LoRa adds a lot of efficiency, resilience, and security features. In fact, 2 of these 9 features are directly security related. And these various security mechanisms are integrated in the protocol, but also the ability to do firmware updates is obviously something that you want to do for security. Next slide. So LoRaWAN addresses the 3 pillars of security. So first, the authenticity, that is the certainty that you know with which device you are communicating, and that also from a device perspective, you can trust the network before starting to send sensor data, for example. Second is the integrity, and that is the certainty that the data has not been tampered with. And third is the confidentiality, and that is that the payload is encrypted and from the end device, and that it will only be decrypted when it gets delivered to the application layer. And that also means that the network that is transporting the data can handle the LoRaWAN traffic, but it cannot really see what the exact payload contents are. LoRaWAN is also a standard protocol that decouples devices from networks and solutions. So LoRaWAN devices can join any LoRaWAN network, and that makes the potential addressable market for device makers huge, because there are many LoRaWAN networks already out there globally. And Derek in the next presentation is also going to talk about the certification program. That's really important in this aspect as well. And as Alper already mentioned, besides LoRaWAN, there are other specifications, and some of them add additional security mechanisms. So the backend interfaces specification for network server components to communicate with each other, they are also mandating security mechanisms. The same for firmware updates, and also the QR code specification has been designed with security in mind. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go over a set on a high-level overview of the security features in LoRaWAN. Next. And here you see the topology of a typical LoRaWAN network. So on the left, you have the end device. It communicates via a physical layer, LoRa or FSK, with a gateway. And then on the right, you have the various network components. So the LoRaWAN Security, as you see from the left to the right, supports the end-to-end encryption, and that's really a feature of LoRaWAN. And also there is the authentication, integrity, and some other encryption between the end device and the network server. That is also a LoRaWAN feature. For the whole solution, gateways and network components also need to be securely connected. So these are typically connections that are just like any other internet connection or an IP connection where many industry standards can be used. Next slide, please. So for those interested in the exact security mechanisms, here's just a glimpse of the security features that are provided by LoRaWAN. And these features are really not provided when using LoRa on a physical layer only. But this is critical when building secure solutions. And so here you see in yellow the authenticity features. So that's mostly related to securely joining a device to a LoRaWAN network before it starts communicating. In green is the integrity part. So that is ensuring that the data has not been modified and not been tampered with. And in blue, you see the confidentiality, and that is the encryption of data and making sure that intermediate parties cannot basically see what the payload is. Now, if you go to the LoRa Alliance website, LoRaAlliance.org, there is a menu in the top, and if you go there to LoRaWAN and then to LoRaWAN Security, you find a lot of great contents with many details on all the security mechanisms in LoRaWAN, including a white paper and a webinar with a full explanation of all the security features in LoRaWAN. Next slide, please. And that also shows the entire overview. So I have that here as well, where you see the end device again on the left and the application server on the right, with all the layers of security that are provided by the protocol and also by applying standards that are already used widely in the industry. So the only thing that LoRaWAN adds is a security mechanism between the end device and the network, and the end device and the application. And besides that, you can apply any existing IP security features. And again, for a full explanation of all these features, yeah, you're very welcome to watch the webinar, which goes into details. Okay, so next I want to introduce Derek Hunt. He is the chair of the director of certification of the LoRa Alliance, and he is going to talk about all the benefits that LoRaWAN has when it comes to certifying applications, and also what the LoRa Alliance introduced recently, which is very interesting for device makers.
Thank you, Johan, and welcome from my side to this webinar. So as Donna mentioned earlier on, a standard is the most critical part of any alliance, and to be able to certify against that standard is something that we take very seriously with that. So what I want to do really is just go through the certification program, give you a little bit of detail about how it is, how you can get involved in it, and then a couple of the tools that we've created as part of the LoRa Alliance to actually help you to get through that certification process. So if you can go on to the next slide, please. So really, what is the certification about? As we've said, it ensures that we behave and we respond to the LoRaWAN protocol for all end devices. It really does guarantee the adherence to the LoRaWAN standard. And in particular, the ones we're looking at is the layer 2 specification and the regional parameters document. The other thing we wanted to try and do as well is test this device in its normal operating conditions. The goal of LoRaWAN is to produce small, independent, battery-powered devices that can go anywhere and be connected anywhere. So we didn't want to introduce a whole load of extra test connections and things like that. So all the certification and testing we do is using it in its normal configuration, and we send LoRaWAN messages to it. The other thing we wanted to make sure is that these are in essence low-cost devices, and we need to make sure that the testing and certification we do is competitive. So the goal has always been 1 day of test time, not weeks or months as it is with other telecoms equipment. And the way we try and achieve this is we make sure that we have effectively a 3-4 hour certification testing. So the 1 day test time means the time in the lab. So you have a couple of hours to get your device set up, then 3 hours or so to do the testing, assuming everything passes, and then it gives the labs an hour or so to write up the certificate and the results at the end of that. And we're trying to make sure that we use an automated test solution to cover all of that. And the other goal that we've tried to make sure is that wherever you need the testing, it's done as close to the developer as possible. But because we're testing against different regions, we need to make sure that those regions are available to test against. So if you're developing something in China and it's going to Europe, then you want to be able to certify the device for Europe. And the other thing that we're doing in the certification is it's against specific builds of firmware, which include the LoRaWAN specification and region. So each device is built specifically for that region, and then the certification program covers that. The other side we've seen as well is the RF performance of the device is critical. And we've had a lot of instances where we've produced a brilliant device, it behaves to the protocol, but when you actually look at the RF performance, it may be very good in, say, one direction, but very poor in something else. So part of what we do as these guidelines is test the device in a 360-degree scan to make sure that in all operations, whatever position the device is going to be actually placed, we know what the output power and the operation of it would be in that. The key thing to cover with this is we do not cover any of the regulatory testing in that. So that is still a separate exercise that needs to be done. So in summary, that's what the certification is. If you go on to the next slide, please. So really, the issue is, what are the risks if you don't, and what are you really looking for? So the goal, obviously, with this is you want to have confidence in reliability. As Donna mentioned, when we start talking about millions and millions of devices, the last thing you want is those devices failing out in the field. So you want to be able to be clear and confident that when you release the product and start shipping it, it will work as it's intended to. And more importantly, it will work under any network condition. We've seen lots of cases where a device has just been tested on a particular network, and then everyone thinks, fine, that is finished and done, and ship the device, only for it to then be connected to a different network, which uses a different set of parameters, and the device then fails. Obviously, that will prove very costly to try and fix if you've already gone into mass production with that. So having it will significantly reduce your cost, because part of the certification program is we test it under all of those different scenarios. The other thing to quote is, obviously, your reputation is at stake here. You've done a lot of work to sell your device, to make your device, to get it out into the field. The last thing you want is, after the first few devices to go out there, start getting a reputation for poor devices. It won't help your credibility, and you're likely to then end up losing the contracts with it. And the other side is, from an operations point of view, poor devices increases the numbers of gateways needed. So if you have very poor performance, you need to have a much greater density. And also the other thing is, from an operator's point of view, they're very concerned that rogue devices can cause real network issues and not just stop their own device, your own device, but potentially take down other devices in there. So by going through that certification program, you will guarantee and have the confidence in yours, and ultimately it will improve your long-term internal investment, because you can get it right first time and ship it straight off. So really, that's the certification. What I want to go on, if you're on to the next slide, please, then, is just a little bit about the LoRa Alliance and how we deal with them. So we have the showcase up on the LoRa Alliance website, and that really is a showcase for certified devices. every device that is certified by the LoRa Alliance is shown on that. And it's really becoming the place to go to. So if someone wants to find a device, know what it is, they can go to the showcase. With that, they can filter the devices by either the version of LoRaWAN specification, if you look down the left-hand side, or by the power output for the devices that have had the RF testing, and then by the vertical as well. So you can select the device that you want for your network that suits you. And just the other thing is, any device that is LoRaWAN certified gets to use the LoRaWAN certification logo, which is shown on there. So this really is a quality stamp to show that your product has passed the certification and abides to the standards. And all of those products are available and shown on the showcase. So that's your one-stop shop to go to if you want to find a device. Next slide, please. So the other thing that we've done and was mentioned earlier is, since I've started with the certification program, I've always been asked by people, I want to be able to test the device myself. Historically, that meant going and connecting to a network and trying it out in the real life, either testing to a test network or whatever. So what the Alliance has done is created this LoRaWAN certification tool, which we call the LCTT. And that has the ability to allow members to test their devices directly at their own physical location. And the goal obviously is to significantly accelerate that certification progress, and also make sure that you can go the quickest you can through the device to make sure that you can finalize the design early. The way the tool works is it is a application that runs on a PC. The application is downloaded from the LoRa Alliance website and runs onto the PC. And as you can see by the diagram on the right, it consists of a test control layer and effectively a small LoRaWAN network server. It then connects physically to a local gateway. And this can be a very low cost, low-end gateway that you can connect directly to your PC. And then it talks to the device under test through the LoRa communication process. So with this, you can have the local gateway and set it up for whatever region you want to test for. So that could be a North American one, or a China one, or an Asian one. And you set up the gateway accordingly, and that sets up the system for you able to do it. So this tool really allows you to run at your own facility and go through the whole of the steps. It has a couple of different modes as well to make it easy. It has what we call the pre-certification mode. And in that, it will automatically run all the tests without any manual intervention to allow you to run through the tests that you will see when you take your device through the certification program. But also, if it fails under any point or you want to investigate it further, it can also be run in a debug mode. And with that, you have the ability to stop and start tests, even create your own tests with it, and effectively run specific ones and modify your own scripts so that you can do that. And you can also send things like Mac commands down to the device. So it's a really good debug tool while you're trying to get the device working. And it was just over a year or so ago when we launched this, and we've now had over 130 licenses for it distributed all over the world. So it's been a really successful tool, and the feedback from everyone is it's really useful. And more importantly, it's available free to all members of the Alliance. So if you're on to the next page, really in summary, what I want to just do is why is certification so valuable? So really it's that confidence and reliability. It reduces the support costs later on. It helps with your marketing, and the Alliance will help you as well for marketing. As I said, we've got the whole showcase and all the devices are there. So we're going to help market your product as well. And it really will have a cost on your operations if you get the design right first. And as Alper talked about, the LoRaWAN certification for 1.04 is now fully available, and we have devices that we're starting to go through now. So that sort of concludes the bit on that. With that, I think we hand over back to Derek to go through any Q&A. And if you have any other questions, please add them into the Q&A box.
Great, thanks, Derek. Thank you. In fact, thank everyone in this first session for all your time and effort to present, put the presentations together and share it with the world. So we did have a couple questions come in. So I'm going to go ahead, Derek, since you just finished speaking and this question just came up, I sent it to you via message. Question is, are you thinking about local certification authorities?
Yeah, so we are always looking at and reviewing for that. We have Allion who will do certification nearby. But what we want to really introduce, and we've been talking before about trying to find a local certification program actually in China as well. So it's certainly on our radar. We don't have one at the moment, but we want to try and get one going in the near future for that.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, Johan, this question came in and I'm going to give this one to you. I sent it to you as well. So for everybody, the question is, do you mean that with LoRaWAN, we don't need to implement any cybersecurity solutions from the market for any IoT application through LoRaWAN?
That's a great question. So LoRaWAN provides the security mechanisms to securely join end devices on a LoRaWAN network and to communicate with network servers and things like that. So from an end device perspective, I would say LoRaWAN provides enough security mechanisms, and it's really integrated into the protocol. On the application side and on the cloud side, so to say, it's always advisable to think of the security mechanisms and the architecture as a whole, and also the security mechanisms that are used between components, and also how data should be stored, and what the access rights are to application data and things like that. That is no different than any other IoT solution. But the LoRaWAN security mechanisms are great for securely connecting end devices to your IoT network.
Okay, sorry, technical error, my fault. It is the Zoom world. So I will repeat that again for everybody. So Alfred, this question is for you. The question is, from which version of LoRaWAN is roaming supported?
Okay, good question. Thank you, Derek, and whoever asked that question. So, well, with the LoRaWAN roaming, we have two flavors of roaming. One of them is called handover roaming. The other one is passive roaming. And right now, what is implemented and deployed in the ecosystem is passive roaming. The name passive comes from the fact that the roaming is totally transparent to the end device. So that means whether the end device is using LoRaWAN link layer spec 1.0 or 1.23 or 104, it can already be using roaming, because the features implementation is strictly within the infrastructure. It's totally transparent to the end device. So any version of the end device can be subjected to roaming.
Great, thank you, Alper. Derek, I'm going to go back to you with another certification question, and here is the question. What is the certification spec for device's physical layer / RF performance?
Okay, so there's a couple of things in here. As I said on that, the certification itself is done against the version of LoRaWAN and against the regional parameters document. And that's for the device protocol certification and also for the RF performance. So we measure the RF performance against the frequencies defined in the regional parameters. So obviously for China, they would be different to they are for North America, for Europe. So the RF performance is actually measured against the specific frequencies. And what we typically do is we pick a low, a mid, and a high frequency, and we do the measurements of both output power and the sensitivity for those devices, using very much the frequencies that are designed as part of the device's ability, so that it works in that frequency band that it's been designed against.
Great, thank you, Derek. Now, Alper, coming back to you. I know we get this next one from time to time, but the question for you, Alper, is when would LoRaWAN spec version 1.1.1 be released?
Right. So that version of that specification, we're targeting to publish that in the second half of the year, more towards the end. So like Q4 is our current target.
Great. Thanks for that. Okay, so Derek, we're going back to you, and we'll do this probably for another 5 minutes, everyone, and then we will start with session 2, just so you know. So Derek, is the LoRaWAN certification based on protocol spec 1.0.4 available in any authorized test house now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the reason that it's a good question is I mentioned about the LCTT tool. The test houses now also have the ability to actually certify using that tool themselves. So we've gone through the process and released the tool itself. So the tool is now fully available to support 1.04, and the test houses have that tool available to them now, so they can start certifying. Some of the test houses are still using their own test harness for this release, and I'm authorizing those ones. So we've got the first one already authorized for Europe, but for most of the test houses, they will be using the LCTT, which has already been audited and approved and is available for certification. So the tool is there available to them. If you talk to the test house, they can get that tool then and then start running it to do the certification against it.
Thank you very much, Derek. And Alper, really everyone, right now it's the Derek and Alper show, and it's a very good show. So thank you all for your work here. Alper, I'm going to give this one to you. I'm a bit uncertain what this question actually is. I think it could be a question about LoRaWAN in general, or it could be maybe something about either certification program. I'm not really sure, but Alper, we'll start with you. Question is it kind of a ways to manage wireless sensors and authentications?
Yeah, that seems a bit ambiguous to me.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I mean, I could throw an answer back at it, but I wouldn't know if that's the answer to the question.
What? Yeah, why don't we do this? The person that submitted that question, we're still not sure exactly what you were writing. Could you resubmit your question with a little more information on what you would like us to answer? And then we could try to come back to it either verbally now, or we'll follow in an email with that. So with that, we'll move on to the next question. So it's an interesting one, and I'm not sure if this would be either Alper or Derek or both. But the question is, and Alper, we'll just start with you, what devices will help me draw a coverage map? And if you want to pass that to Derek, knock yourself out.
What devices would help them coverage the map, to map the coverage?
To draw a coverage map.
Yeah. So typically a lot of tracker devices that would help people draw the coverage map. So I mean, I don't want to really name names here, but there are RF testers who help that, and also there are trackers, and the applications of those trackers also have a mode where the tracker sends continuous uplink frames, obviously while respecting the duty cycle and dwell time limitations, and through those pings, the application in the cloud drops in pin drops on the map to help provide coverage. So yeah, and check with check with the tracker device manufacturers if their application supports that, and also look for RF tester devices in the marketplace.
Thanks, Alper. So I will take, I'm actually going to combine two questions, and this will be the last for this session. We've gotten a lot of good questions. So what we will do is we will send out a communication to everybody with answers to all the questions that have been submitted. But I've got, so look for that. That will come out in the next few days to all attendees. So your questions will be answered. This last question for this session is kind of a combination. It's a, where can we check the use cases and white papers? Are they all on the LoRa Alliance website? And the answer to that is yes. The vast majority of our collateral with use cases and our white papers and lots of other information is on our website. You can go to our website, www.LoRa-Alliance.org. You can go to click on the resource hub. It's in the top right. It's a button, and that will take you to our resource hub, which has quite a lot of information about the LoRa Alliance. You can also go to our vertical markets section of the website, which I showed you in my presentation earlier, just a snapshot of different content there. So you can go and take a look at that. And then another thing related to our website is in terms of, are you thinking about creating a single coverage map for all networks? Well, we do have a very good coverage map on our website. If you go to the LoRa Alliance website, you will be able to find our coverage map, and that shows you coverages for different kinds of LoRaWAN networks. Because in the LPWAN network space, we're the most flexible. We offer public networks, we offer LoRaWAN private networks, we also offer hybrid. So there is a coverage map. It shows you the different countries around the world where LoRaWAN is available, and the operators or public networks in that case who operate there. So unfortunately, we don't have time to answer the rest of the questions right now. Lots of great questions, and we will get them back to you. So thank you very much for asking them. So look for our communication with the answers to these questions in the next couple of days. But for now, it's time to move on to our session 2, because we really want to spotlight and showcase 2 of our members who have joined today's webcast, and also hear from Xiaobo Yu of Alibaba, who's going to present some market feedback. So the next speaker is Terry Chang of LoRa, and Terry is going to talk about personnel and asset location management system. Go ahead, Terry, over to you.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Terry. I'm honored to be here to make the speech at this conference. I'm Terry, the product line of the LoRa, a product line manager of LoRa. And today my topic is location management of personnel and asset in chemical industry. The content is divided into 3 parts. First of all, I will introduce LoRa company, and second, I will introduce location solution via LoRaWAN, and finally, I will tell you why we choose LoRaWAN. Next. Next. LoRa was established in 2001 and start to provide embedded solution for customer in 2007. And in 2013, LoRa released the first LoRaWAN modules and get good feedback from the customers. And in 2015, LoRa released the first version LoRaWAN module. And in 2017, LoRa released the LoRaWAN gateway modules, and soon later, LoRa published its own gateway. Now, more and more modules is provided by LoRa. So far, LoRa is the largest LoRa modules provider in the world. had shipped 50 million IoT wireless modules in past 3 years. And LoRa has more than 2,000 IoT vertical application partners, over 2 billion of revenue in 2019. And now we have more than 1,000 employees and have our own factory. Please, next. Next one. So far, LoRa has built a business all over the world, in European, in South Asian, Pacific, South African, and American, South American, North American. We all build the cooperation with our partners. As you see in the list, in the picture, LoRa has the 4 series of LoRaWAN modules. Yeah, next. And we have the China versions such as CN and ACA and CLA. And also we have LoRaWAN gateway and the gateway modules. Next one. Yeah, we now LoRa can help our customers to provide the whole solution, and such as the LoRaWAN e-meter and the LoRaWAN water meter. We help them to build the whole application. Please press. Go ahead. And at the end of last year, we cooperated with RT3 and we provided the modules for them. You can see the modules in the picture. It helps the developers to know LoRaWAN and how to use LoRaWAN, use this EVK kit. Okay, next one. Yeah. Then we go to see why chemical industry need a personal location. So I'm going to skip the background of the chemical industry because most of you know it. Please help to jump to page 56. Yeah, next. And then next. Yeah, it's a background. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I will spend more time to introduce the whole solution. Yeah, now is the architecture of our solution. It has 3 parts. One is position return back. Return back. I will introduce the architecture of the solution. Yeah, first is the position detection. Second is data transmission. The third one is application. We use the Bluetooth to detect the position, and the tag will receive the data and then transfer to gateway via LoRaWAN. And the gateway will send the data to NS, then decode in the platform. The platform algorithm will figure out the location of the people. Next. Yeah, it has 4 functions. One is entry management. The second is location quality. And the third one is electronic fence. And also we have the button alarm. Next. About the entry function, when a staff receives a location budget, he can register on the platform, upload the list name or put by one. By wearing the location budget, the plant employee are matched with the hand card, which can be displayed on the maps. Next. About the location. And the real-time can be displayed in the maps. You can find people and get the current position and the historical trace. Next. And we also have the dangerous security warning. When someone enters into or departure from the dangerous area by personnel, the solution will transfer the data to the command and the control system through LoRaWAN. Then the system will sound a security alarm and immediately contact the security personnel for timely and reduce the possibility of personal security accidents. Next. Next is emergency alarm. We provide a button for SOS alarm. The users can press such key for seeking help when in danger. After the SOS alarm button is pressed, the badge will give alarm via LoRaWAN, display the real-time position of the employee and inform the managers immediately so that more time can be bought for saving. It has two functions. One is two advantages. One is timely alarm. Another is real-time location. Next is geography fence system. And the personnel are located and monitored through a low-power Bluetooth electronic fence system. Next. And it's a spatial visual display. Personal electronic indoor map drawing. The target is visually visible in space. Okay, I will go next. I will make an introduction for the key hardware. The first one is the beacon. Next, super long steady standby iBeacon uses return. It can transfer 200 meters, and there are two wires to installation. And the second one is LoRaWAN tags. You can see the badge and the assessment tags. And the badge is a rechargeable one. It can work more than 1 month with full battery charge. And the access tag is one-time use tag. It can work more than 2 years. Next is LoRaWAN gateway. This gateway is developed by LoRa, and it's a high-performance gateway. Next. Yeah, we also can provide the NS, and the NS can install in the cloud or local server. Next. And it's the installation. The gateway can choose RJ45 or 4 GB network, and can be used indoor or outdoor. But we should pay attention to the waterproof, clouding, and other relation issues on outdoor use. You should make sure install the antenna in somewhere not easy to touch, and there's no shielding around the antenna. Okay, next. Then I will show why we choose the LoRaWAN. Next, we make a comparison. Next. Yeah, return. turn back. Yeah, we make a comparison about the SIG-B active UWB and the LoRaWAN with BLE, and you can see the project cost. The LoRaWAN plus BLE is a low cost and shorter period project. And about the power line, if you use the LoRaWAN and the BLE solution, you needn't to put the power line. Just the battery is okay. And also, you can see about all the functions. We can make a comparison. LoRaWAN has the biggest advantage in cost, construction difficulty, and expandability. And the location accuracy can meet the requirement, and it's a very cost-effective solution. And also, if you choose the LoRaWAN, after you finish the project, wireless of intelligent environmental sense can be extended. You can add all of the sense to the NS via our gateway, and such as the electronic meters and other equipment. Next. And also various intelligent environmental sense can all be extended. You can see the indoor, you can add the door mechanism and the door lock and the gas alarm and the air quality monitor to indoor, and outdoor you can do the gas monitor, intelligent hydrant, and the street light control, and also you can put the manhole detection and the intelligent wristband. You can add this sensors to this solution, and it can be used. You needn't add other things. Okay. Next. Yes, that's all my presentation. Okay, let's introduce my presentation is finished. Let me introduce Jose Marcelina, who is from RAC Wireless. His topic is Angel LoRaWAN nodes for the fast-moving world.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Jose Marcelino. I'm a solutions architect at RAC Wireless. Next slide, please. So RAC Wireless is a young company. It was established in Shenzhen in 2014. However, we have a very international team now with over 100 employees spanning over 8 countries, which is making a very interesting company to work in. We specialized in LoRaWAN technology. We have over 50 products already in our active catalog. Our most popular products and most well-known are the indoor and outdoor gateways, and also our concentrator cards. These products are now part of maybe the world's largest LoRaWAN public networks, such as the Things Network, Helium, etc. To this, we've now added our own management platform, which is called WizDM as well. So this is our cloud management system. We also have a number of popular LoRaWAN sensors, such as environmental, buttons, and industrial sensors, which people like. And finally, and like true to our motto, which is IoT made easy, we also have a number of developer modules available to our developers who want to create their own products. And we have a very active developer community with support in forums and Slack, etc. Next slide, please. Today, I want to present our new product, which is the WizBlock. This is our modular development product. It combines a microcontroller of the LoRa radios and various sensor blocks. The modules can all be picked and mixed, so you can create your own product with the sensors you need and the microcontrollers you need. And most importantly, this can all be changed using a simple screwdriver. This kind of product gives the developers a lot of flexibility, which we find IoT developers need because things change so quickly and requirements change late in the process often. So we can, using this device, we can take developers from like the proof of concept stage to mass production, and even change the devices after they've been deployed in the field, which is quite a novel idea. Using this technology, developers can change their the frequency bands. For example, they can start with a US product and then change it to the China frequency, which requires a different module. They can later add different sensors to the project, or change even the main microcontroller. So in case they need more power, they can upgrade the microcontroller part. Some of so the WizBlock modules are separate boards. They get attached to the main baseboard using screws, making it a very secure fix. Our current top of the range module includes Bluetooth, so using the Nordic nRF52840 Bluetooth microcontroller. Then to this we add the latest Semtech SX1262 radio. We can support all frequency bands, so both the US, Europe, and also Chinese frequency on the 470 megahertz spectrum. So we can, like I said, we can move. So you can start with the device for the European or US markets, and then move to the Chinese market very easily just by replacing the module. Next slide, please. So other sensor options include the accelerometer, various options on that, air quality, GPS sensors. We also have a number of industrial buses, such as RS485 and 4 to 20 milliamps. And those are just the current modules we have. So we would very much like to work with developers to create new modules. We're very happy to do that. All the designs are open source. We provide the design files for all of them. Finally, we also have options for secure elements. So if you want to deploy with the things industries, for example, or AWS, we can offer a simple plug-in module with a secure element. So it acts like a kind of a SIM card almost. So it's easy to attach and replace later on. Next slide, please. So our teams have been working with WizBlock for the past year. We've run a very successful beta with very, very good developers on it. But our teams have also developed our own in-house solutions. And I'd like to present some of our applications we've deployed in China. Next slide, please. Maybe the most exciting application is our rail tests using at the Beijing Metro Maintenance Department. So in there, we've deployed our RAC 725080 indoor gateway and also some outdoor gateways, the 7249. And we've had excellent coverage across the whole workshop. That was really amazing, the power of LoRaWAN. And we've deployed in several machinery, we've deployed our WizBlock sensors using the accelerometer module. And thanks to the power of the microcontroller, we can do some edge analytics almost to detect abnormal vibration. And the results have been really encouraging, and we look to expand this trial into more workshops. Next slide, please. This project is really, really great. So Fujian has deployed smart lighting across the city. There's a city in Fujian. Fujian is a region, of course. And in there, we've synchronized a lot of landscape lights. This is all thanks to LoRaWAN 103, which allows us to synchronize time and send time updates to the end devices. So we've developed an algorithm for that, so to make sure that all lights light up at the same time. For this, we use the WizBlock device with the RS485 bus adapter. This controls a circuit breaker, basically, for the light. And it makes it's a very simple solution now to deploy, but it's working in that city. And it's really fun to see all the lights light up at 7 p.m. on time using LoRaWAN. Next slide, please. So we also encourage partners to work with us, and we have a number. I mean, RAC has really good partners across the world. We really have to thank them a lot, and we encourage them to experiment in the Chinese market. So we can definitely help companies with that. And one of those companies has been Ceturus. This is an Israeli company. They have excellent sensors for monitoring water inside the plants in agriculture. So this is like looking at water level in trees, how much the water is really reaching the plant. It's really amazing technology. And they've wanted to experiment in China. So their partner at IoT Experts, Tom Zamir, he worked with us on in deploying a gateway, a 16-channel gateway in a farm in China for testing. They deployed their sensors as well. We had a number of nodes there. And we saw an amazing 700 meters range using the one LoRa gateway across the whole field. And this is a very dense tree grove. So again, it shows really the power of the LoRa technology. So with just one gateway, we can cover a whole very, very densely tree-lined region. Next slide, please. And finally, I think this is the most exciting to me. It's the new project we're now deploying. Sorry, a previous slide. Yes. Thank you. This is our current project in Macau. Macau is a special administrative region of China, very much like Hong Kong. It's located in China's Greater Bay Area. And it's also the location of a Chinese state key laboratory for the Internet of Things, as well as having the United Nations University Center there, which does research on data for sustainable development. But it's also part of the Chinese Greater Bay Area project now, which includes Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Macau, and the Guangdong area. So we feel that Macau is a great place to start any trials or experiments, because they can then be migrated to mainland China, basically. We've deployed 10 gateways now in Macau. They offer almost a full citywide coverage across using both AS923 and Chinese 470 megahertz spectrum. And we very much encourage any partners or just interested parties to contact us to use this fantastic network there for their own trials. And with that, I think that's all I've got today. Next slide. So I'd like now to present Xiaobo Yu, the standard expert for in Alibaba's standardization department, also the Asia Pacific Regional Vice Chair for the LoRa Alliance. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Jules. Hello, everybody. I'm Xiaobo from Alibaba Group. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes to introduce briefly some of the key point of the marketing feedback from China, and also how to improve the LoRaWAN in China. Next slide, please. Firstly, I want to give you a big pictures of what the LoRaWAN ecosystems looks like in until 2020. So we have at least 150 LoRaWAN operators globally, and with 163 countries have the LoRaWAN deployment and for the service of certain verticals. So the LoRaWAN operators here, it's not only the traditional operators that are managing the public land mobile network, but also we have some new types of operators, which are actually the internet company, some new companies globally like the Actility. So they are building up their networks for serving the different verticals within different countries. And also for the LoRaWAN networks in different countries, there can be a private network that serve locally with some very specific use case or applications, or some public networks that can serve for a wider range of applications or use cases. Next slide, please. Uh, this is our six very typical use case that which are very hot in China and also in the Asian Pacific area. So it's not, I'm not really say that there's only six use cases that are popular in China and Asia Pacific, but there's also some other potential use case that are valuable for the LoRaWAN to deploy. Um, so I just want to point out one or two of the typical use cases. The first one is the smart community, which is kind of hot in China. So I know there are some companies that deploy their LoRaWAN devices within a certain cities or rural areas for serving the users, customers in different kind of use case, like in supermarket. They use LoRaWAN device as the electronic tabs for showing the price of each goods, and also they use the LoRaWAN devices to do the tracking of animals or some personnel. So I think the latest number is we have approximately 100 million LoRaWAN connected devices worldwide, which is really continually increased within this years. Next slide, please. So as Derek Wallen said, so 2020 is kind of special years because all the peoples are afraid of COVID-19. Everybody talking about COVID-19. But we're so surprised to see within the 1 year, there's a lot of applications for fighting COVID-19 using LoRaWAN comes up. So I only point out there's four typical applications. The left the left one is the quarantine management solutions, which provided by the Tencent and Alibaba. For the second one, the body temperature test is provided by the EasyLink companies, which are also our LoRaWAN members in China. And there are also some other applications provided by the internet by the companies that are outside China. For example, the medical gas valve monitoring, and also the proximity detections and contact tracing for the COVID-19. So I'm not only trying to point out that there's so many solutions for fighting the COVID-19 using LoRaWAN, but I'm proud to say that for some very big problems that happen in a very short times, we have the LoRaWAN. It's quite efficient. It's quite flexible to solve any unexpected solution, any unexpected problems or difficulties in a real world case. So that which makes LoRaWAN is a very promising technology. Next slide, please. So beside the applications for fighting the COVID-19, we still see a lot of new and innovative applications in China and APAC regions. I see Joe has already showed some new and interesting application in his slides. So here are some of the applications that I think is also interesting. So you can see the smart beekeeping, which is really deployed in China, which is this project is collaborated between Alibaba and Easy LinkedIn. So this is kind of a device that are used to track the beekeeping, and with the technologies, the bee production has increased 20%. And also outside China, we see in Korea, there are some applications like core monitoring, personnel positioning. And also in Korea, we see there's an integrated solutions which used for the expressway. We can see the applications really covers the different kind of use case, like for safety, for the transportations, and for the remote control for some infrastructure devices like street light, like gate, and a bridge operations. So in near future, I believe we will have more innovative applications that is deployed in China and APAC regions. And next slide, please. So I'm going to introduce some benefit and also the differentiators for using the LoRaWAN. So I think some of the point has already been covered by the other chairs. So I just want to point out a few things. Security, as Johan said, we have security mechanism for every new features, and the TC will consider any new income CRs or new solutions used in a very secure way. So the objective for the LoRaWAN is to make the technology secure enough for people to use. And also the geolocation. We're trying to come up with a very light-weighted localization technologies that can be widely used in the IoT area for certain typical applications like tracking of goods or animals, persons. Also, there are also for the coverage. Now in TC, we have set up a new task force, which is the Relay and D2D task force. We have investigate the use case that could possibly be used for the deployment of the relay or device-to-device communication. And I believe in the next like 2 or 3 years, I'm gonna release some of new good news for the progress of TC. Next slide, please. So as everyone know, LoRaWAN is a very global standard for IoT, and LoRaWAN is kind of a de facto standard. The reason is we have the largest LoRaWAN ecosystem, including some of the giant companies like Tencent and Cisco, Alibaba, and other companies outside China. Also, we have very standardized LoRaWAN protocols, and also we have the task house that are building up globally. And also we are trying to investigate the possibility to build up a new LoRaWAN task house in China. And this job has been discussed and progress in the China LoRa task force. Next slide, please. Here is a very glance at the LoRaWAN adoptions worldwide. So if you can see the first pictures, so what worldwide we see there's approximately 64% of the device that are using LoRaWAN and LoRaWAN plus other technologies. The LoRaWAN plus others means actually the device is really based on the LoRaWAN protocol, but they have some slight or minor some update or some optimizations using the LoRaWAN, but actually they are all back compatible with the LoRaWAN protocols. So if you can see the second picture, so we can see that in China region, we have a kind of issues that a proprietary solution is larger than the amount of devices that are based on the LoRaWAN and LoRaWAN plus the others. So there are some kind of a reason that cause these issues, but actually the bright side I see is in these 2 years, I found out there's so many companies that have become positive for using the LoRaWAN protocols other than the proprietary solutions. They're trying to look into how they're going to use the LoRaWAN protocols in their device. The reason is that they want to build connection with the outside world, or they have their communication with the outside world, so that they need to speak with the same language, which is the LoRaWAN protocol. Beside the bright phenomena, we still have some ways or measures that we can use to improve the LoRaWAN deployment in China. So next slide, please. Before I introduce the way the future work, I really wanted to point out why using LoRaWAN is more important than using the proprietary solutions. So as the TC chairs, as the Alper said, we have standardized every single important features for the device to operate in a proper frequency band. So we have adaptive data rate control. We have secured every single procedures in the protocols, such as the joining procedures, such as the data transmissions. And also we have come up with different kind of transmission mode, which is the confirmed or unconfirmed the packet transmission, covering the uplink and downlink transmissions. Also, another important things, beside the very basic foundation LoRaWAN protocols, we have some other protocols that are supporting the LoRaWAN protocols, which are the regional parameter specifications, and also some of the upper layer specifications that can be used based on the LoRaWAN. So that's why we believe using LoRaWAN, we can bring more values to the practical world. So next slide, please. So in the final slides, I want to introduce some of the future works that for improving the LoRaWAN in China in the next few years. So for the marketing perspective, as Derek said, so we'll have more face-to-face meeting and virtual meeting targeting China regions. The purpose is that we want to build a strong link between the LoRa Alliance and also the China LoRa industries, and to hear from the voice from the LoRaWAN industry in China, and then collect the real requirements so that we can take actions to solving any potential issues. For the technical aspect, so actually we have here some of the voice from LoRaWAN industry in China, and then we converted these requirements into the real technical work, like what I said, the relay, D2D, and also some of the new project like the gateway to NS specifications to solve some more practical issues in China. So if you're interested, if anyone interested in contributing the technical work, so please join the Alliance and to contribute to TC and to the technical committee and marketing committees. So the last one I want to introduce is the China Task Force, which are set up only for the China regions, and it focuses on growing awareness and adoptions LoRaWAN in China. And in this specific task force, we will discussing technical and marketing aspects in China regions, and when we can generate the requirements and some of the requests, and that can be formally delivered to the marketing and technical committees in the LoRa Alliance. So now for the China task force, we need more power. We need more new members for making a better LoRaWAN in China. So if you are interested in solving the real LoRaWAN issues in the China region, so please join the LoRa Alliance and to make your own contributions to the LoRaWAN industry in China to make it better. So that's all for my presentation, I think.
Great. Thank you, Shabo.
Thank you.
So we will finish with a Q&A. We just only have a few minutes for that. I've looked through the questions. Oh, let me do my video. It's very, very late in the morning for me, so I'm a little tired, operating a little bit slowly. So we'll finish with this Q&A. I've looked through the questions. We only have a little bit of time left. I know we've answered some of the questions through the presentation, but there's a couple that I'll try to share out. So first is I will address this next question first, and then Alper, perhaps you can add on to it if you are still with us. So the question is, how do we ensure that the regional parameters keep matching changing local regulations? And also, Shabo, you can talk a little bit after I talk as well. So one of the most important ways to help ensure that the regional parameters keep up with local conditions, and for local, I'm going to say China, is to join the LoRa Alliance and participate in the China Task Force, to participate in the technical committee. And within the technical committee, which Alper is the chair of, there is a regional parameters work group. That work group is set up specifically to deal with changing local regulations and conditions within the alliance from the technical specification. There is also within the LoRa Alliance, and you'll see when you download the end of year report, a very good win by the regulatory work group, working in partnership with the Italian government and some of our Italian members, because the regulatory work group works with governments around the world when members request help or if something we see needs to be done to deal with changing local regulations. So from the government side, the regulatory work group handles that. And then from the technical side, the regional parameters will look at how the different local regulations can impact the regional parameters and make the appropriate adjustments. So Alper or Shabo, is there anything that you would like to add to what I said?
Yeah.
Well, Derek, from my end, you have summarized it very well. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
And actually, I want to point out that we have a very good examples, just like what Derek said. So according to the policy changing in China, we have accepted several CRs that are really specifically to solve the potential
Shabo,
issues. Yeah.
explain what a CR is. You've said that a few times, but they may not know what a CR is.
It's for catering the requirements of the microwave requirements that are sent from MIT. So we have changed the power for transmissions. We have changed some other parameters for complying with the latest requirements, so that everyone using the regional parameter specification will not disobey with the local policy. So this is the things we have been done in the last years, and for the in the future we will always keep an eye on the local government policy, and we will change and we will modify the we will update the regional parameter specifications accordingly.
Thank you, Shabo. Here's another question. Again, I'll start off with an answer for this one, and then Alper, if you want to add anything, go ahead. So the question is, what is the theoretical range of LoRaWAN, and what are conditions to achieve it? Longest range and density area with buildings and for open rural areas. So the standard information we share on this is if you have line of sight, so there's no interference blocking from a gateway to a sensor or LoRaWAN end device, you can get up to 10 miles or 16 kilometers connectivity with LoRaWAN. If you're in a dense urban environment, generally we say it can be up to 2 to 3 miles, depending on how dense that environment is and what type of barriers you're going through. And what's important though is in the real world, the theoretical is always going to come up against the realities of the world. And there are many different things that can impact how much range you can get. And in the real world, we sometimes see shorter ranges than what I've stated. We also see much longer ranges than what I've stated. Things that matter are how often are you sending data? How much data are you sending? Are you asking, do you require acknowledgements of the packets that you send? What spreading factors are you using? What type of barriers are you going through? So are you going through trees, like the one example earlier? Are you going through metal? Are you going through glass? Are you going through cement? Are you going underground? These are all things that change with the different use cases. And those things can impact how much range you're going to get. But in general, the theoretical and what we do see is up to 10 miles with direct line of sight with no interference. And so that's 16 kilometers. And then up to 2 to 3 miles, which is about up to 4 to 5 kilometers in an urban environment. But that one really can vary depending on all those factors I said. Alper, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Just a couple of data points to that. Like you said, Derek, I mean, on the surface of the Earth, definitely 10 to 15 kilometers is what we get. But when we have like true line of sight, when the curvature of the Earth is not a problem, as I had mentioned in my slide, like we're able to place LoRaWAN gateways on the LEO satellites that are flying 500 to 600 kilometers away from the surface. So that's real. That's the amount of range we can get out of it. Obviously, on the terrestrial networks, assuming everyone agrees the Earth is round, we don't get this much line of sight, and then the range goes down to tens of miles and kilometers. And then in the dense urban, yes, couple kilometers, couple miles is what we get, and that's exactly how several water meter and gas meter deployments are rolling out at the moment. And also the REC Wireless presentation had another data point, 700 meters through the trees, which is also an extreme harsh RF condition, and that's the mileage, that's the coverage you can get out of that, which is also pretty impressive, I would say. And we these are not just theoretical, but also definitely we are seeing a lot of deployments relying on this type of coverage and deploying their devices at the moment.
Thanks, Hopper, for that. And I actually, there's a comment of welcome. If you're new to LoRaWAN, welcome to the world of up to and hard to predict. And that's true because the world is a changing place. There's lots of different factors. And what is important for me in this role, I've actually been involved with LoRaWAN in previous roles, is to be very realistic, to talk about real world examples, to talk about the different factors that go into performance, RF performance. If people have RF background, you know those different factors. So it's wise for us to say that there are different factors, but we know in gray conditions we can get extremely long coverage, and other conditions that the coverage shortens. So I will go to the question for you, Derek. Are you still with us, Derek? Let me see. Yep, looks like you are.
I am.
Great. So, Derek, the question for you is, when is the LoRa Alliance going to publish the certification test for China region?
Okay, so thank you for that. It's a good question. As we've been talking about, we've been updating the regional parameters as we've talked about to keep track with the regulatory authorities in there. So the regional parameters has recently been updated in the 470 band. And what we're looking at is doing a certification test for that. We've changed the way that the certifications requirements document is created now. So for LoRaWAN 104, rather than needing to create an individual certification program for each region, we have a core specification which says all the tests that need to be run either on the FCC or the ETSI type requirements. And then they can be adapted using the regional parameters. So what we're looking at for China now is, now that we've got it stabilized in the regional parameters, is creating a certification program at LoRaWAN 104. We have the core spec in place, and just looking at the regional parameters will give us the versions that we need to do with that. So the goal will be, rather than create a separate unique certification requirement document for China, China will be able to use the 104 with the regional parameters, and we can create the certification specification specifically for China from that.
Great, thank you, Derek. That was a very clear answer. This will be the last question that we'll take, but again, we will respond to all the questions in a follow-up email. I'm going to go to Fran's question because he made me laugh. If it's a he, if it's a she, I apologize. With the up to welcome to LoRaWAN world. So Alpha, I'll give this to you. I don't know if we've done it within the Alliance. I know different companies have done different modeling tools, but the question from Fran is, do you recommend any modeling software where we can estimate capacity of a system? For example, a large construction site with 3,000 workers blinking every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Right, so there are definitely different tools out there in the market with different capability. Some of them are simple calculators without taking into account the topology. Some are very advanced, taking a topology into account and providing precise planning. Well, I'm aware of a couple of them, including one from my company, Actility. But what I suggest is we get back to this question with a more comprehensive list covering other members of the Alliance as well. So can we take this as an action item and get back to the and others?
We will do that, and that's a very fair point. And for everyone, just to point out, with the LoRa Alliance, when we are representing the Alliance or a member company is representing the Alliance, we have equality bylaws where we need to treat every company equally. So we cannot just say one company that may have a solution if it's not part of the panelist today. We have to do our best to show, give an answer that is equal to the companies in the market. So we will follow up with that. With an answer with our recommendations. And then there was a, from one of in the chat box, which is good, it didn't come from us, sorry, I'm reading it as I talk. They're in the chat to all panelists, it's just to us, our two companies that, Jose, if you want to share that with everybody, please feel free to do that. So all panelists and attendees, and they can see what you shared there. So with that, everyone, thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us for the first of our webinar series, focusing on the LoRaWAN and the Chinese market. Stay tuned for more information in the coming months of upcoming webinars. Remember that we will have our destination LoRaWAN stop in the China market in April. There will be lots more information on that coming up. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to the LoRa Alliance. And as I said, we will send these slides out to everybody within probably 48 hours of today's webcast. And also we will answer the questions that have been submitted. So again, Thank you all very much, and I wish you a very good day or evening wherever you are in the world. And with that, I will say goodbye.